And welcome back to Music Free Static. I hope you're having a fabulous day today. And today we're going to talk about part 8 of Ahsoka. And yes, the final episode, the season series. We don't know yet. It came to an end. I think it's just the season, maybe. I don't know, but they left it on a heck of a cliffhanger to end a series on. So it's. I'm hoping for news here soon, but this is great. So again, we're going to talk full spoilers about episode 8, The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. And this was a fun episode. Lots of good Star Wars, fighting and stuff, but very much, what I heard somebody describe it as an Empire Strikes Back like ending, which isn't far off, to be honest. Now, it's fun. I'm going to go through and talk about sort of the characters and where they were at today, as my cat is yelling in the background. So it kind of starts with Elsbeth, Morgan Elsbeth, being fully, initiated, accepted as a Night Sister. And you can go watch something like New Rock Stars, or somebody talks about all of the Easter eggs of, oh yes, this enchantment was the same as happened over here and whatever. All of that is true and very cool. But Elsbeth was given the Sword of Talzin. Now, Mother Talzin was like the head Night Sister throughout the Clone Wars series. She showed up a lot, actually. And I think we even saw her using the Sword of Talzin against Mace Windu. Mace Windu, in one of the episodes of the Clone Wars, which was fun. It was actually a really good episode featuring Jar Jar Binks. So, yeah, fun stuff. But I had to laugh. So she shows up, and the three sort of Night Sister mothers, or whatever they are rewarding her for her work. And they do her initiation, give her the sword and all that fun stuff. But she, it kind of shows that, yeah, that the Night Sister's goals are not Thrawn's, which was kind of fun. We'll get to that in a minute, but I had to laugh at Thrawn because he's watching this, and the Night Sisters come, and one of them puts their hands on Elsbeth's face, green fire goes, and Thrawn's just in the background watching this like it's just another day at the office. And yeah, maybe it was. Maybe this type of thing happened all the time. But I had to laugh. It was just kind of fun. So let's jump over to Ezra. Ezra did build himself a new lightsaber. Not surprising, right? And it's not like he was lacking in lightsaber parts on Huyang's ship. And it was fun. He built a lightsaber, and he used an emitter on the end of it that looks very much like what Kanan had on his, which was sort of a fun nod. I'm kind of curious where he got a kyber crystal to power the thing. But, those things tend to just show up when they're needed. So it's very possible that Ezra had found one and then but didn't really have the parts to build the lightsaber itself. So that's something that we may find out in other storytelling later. Who knows? We also got some interesting, fun bits about Sabine. We know that Ahsoka had left Sabine, didn't want to finish her training because of some concern. We found out that Ahsoka was afraid that Sabine was learning to be a Jedi to seek revenge for the Night of 1,000 Tears, which killed off most of the Mandalorians on that planet and her family as well. So you kind of can see that. And Sabine is throughout the Clone Wars was the type of person who would definitely want to seek revenge on occasion. Not that she was like dark and evil, but she deeply cared for the people around her. It's the same problem that Anakin had in some ways, is that he cared so much that it led to his fall. I think Ahsoka may have been somewhat afraid for Sabine in the same way. Now, Ahsoka herself has, I think her character arc was interesting through the series. One of my early complaints about Ahsoka, actually in the Mandalorian and Boba Fett episodes that she was in, as well as the beginning of this episode, or this series, was that Ahsoka was very somber, which was never really her character. She was, you see in season 7, she's had a lot that she's had to deal with, but she was still very much open to friendships and caring about others and the plight of others. And it seemed like in The Mandalorian, in the Book of Boba Fett, and the beginning of the Ahsoka series, that Ahsoka had sort of closed herself off from everybody. And, it could very well, I talked about it before. She'd been dealing with the trauma of having grown up as a soldier in a war that was rigged against her to begin with, and have that conflicted with her training as a Jedi of trying to be a defender of peace and justice in the galaxy, right? Well, she sort of learned, especially through that World Between Worlds episode, that she got to choose her path. And since that point, you see her open up again. She's opened up with Sabine, she's opened up with Huyang. And now, I think the discussion that she has with Sabine towards the beginning of the episode is illuminating. She challenges Sabine a little bit. Says, okay, your gamble paid off. Sabine's like, yeah, it did. Ahsoka says, okay, it might not have. And Sabine's sort of, you can see her waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? And Ahsoka's like, it might not have had you made another choice. But basically, it was your choice, and you made the best one for you, and I'm here to stand with you for that. And it took Sabine a minute to figure out what's going on, and Ahsoka explains that, her master, of course, Anakin Skywalker, always supported her, even when nobody else did. And in season 5, when Ahsoka is framed for a bombing in the Jedi Temple, the entire Jedi Order turns on her, except for Anakin. He was always there. He was hunting for the truth, even when the rest of the Order was ready to expel her and give her over to the New Republic for trial and probably imprisonment or worse. And that's what led her to leaving the Order. And she's realized that's part of her role is to stand by her Padawan, stand by the person she's training, offer correction when it's needed, because that's the role of any teacher. But to be supportive and understanding of why, in this case, Sabine is making the choices she's making. And that, I think, was an interesting arc. And that's leaving her in an interesting place for whatever is coming next. I'm going to assume there's a season 2. They've got an interesting setup for one. So we'll talk about more of that here towards the end. But Ahsoka really seems to have gotten her groove back. She's definitely so not only open to her friends and stuff, but she's like, all right, no, we're going to do this. And she's now back with some of the jokes, and she's back, not like she was never like the comic relief, but she's back to some of that lighthearted banter. And she's back to, all right, let's do this. We'll see what happens and let's go, So most of the episode is them storming the castle. Okay. So they end up riding on their howlers, their happy giant wolves, to dodging turbo laser blasts to make it into the castle. And you definitely see why, hey, Jedi were awesome. When you've got this large squad of apparently volunteer night troopers, they volunteered to stay behind and have a slight change made to them. So, the whole point is they're there to stall the Jedi. Now, this gave a really fun insight again into Thrawn. Elsbeth is trying to tell him at the beginning of the episode, there's nothing the Jedi can do. The cargo is loaded, she says, as they're loading more cargo on. But the cargo is loaded. We are ready to go. There's nothing they can do. And Thrawn's like, no, I've underestimated Jedi before. Other Imperials have underestimated Jedi before. We are not doing that. We're going to prepare for a ground assault. And that's exactly what happens. And they prepare by apparently preparing a bunch of night troopers to become zombies. Because that's what Star Wars has needed, is zombie stormtroopers. Now, it was fun. The Night Sisters, we've seen them do this before. There was an episode, it was General Grievous, who basically was sent down during the Clone Wars to wipe out the Night Sisters. And pretty well did. But as part of that, the Night Sisters raised up their dead, basically, to fight against Grievous and company. So we see the same Night Sister magics used to reanimate stormtroopers. And it was definitely fun to see. You get Ezra and Ahsoka, they just, and Sabine, of course, cut their way through this whole squad of stormtroopers. Sabine being more comfortable with her blasters, it's like, and Ahsoka knowing it, and said, okay, put away the lightsaber, pull out your blasters, we are going to go play to our strengths here. They wipe out the night troopers, and they said, okay, we're good. And then the night troopers start getting up again. It's like, oh, well, okay. I guess we fight our way up the tower with them on our heels. And so that was fun. And they, couple of big hulking, I don't know if they even have a special name, but these were big night troopers in black armor, death troopers, perhaps. And they, yeah. Sabine shoots away the face mask of one, and oh yeah, it is total zombie time. And you can see it tries to take a bite out of her arm, but of course she's got her van braces on, which helps just a bit, Turns out Beskar stops lightsabers, stops blasters, stops zombies. Good times all around. So, but it's fun. But we also have what I was kind of a little bit afraid of before, when they talked about Ahsoka training to use the Force and not really being able to. We get that Deus Ex Machina type of Force use, similar to what Luke had in Empire Strikes Back. Here's Sabine, she's being pinned, she needs to get her lightsaber back, and that's when she starts being able to use the Force. Okay. It's a little bit of it's not unexpected. It just feels like it's a little too convenient, right? And it's not like she's suddenly Force leaping and doing all this other stuff, right? She's not, but she's suddenly open to being able to use it, which then leads to those interesting discussions of somebody who isn't strong in the Force, like Sabine, how much can you learn? How strong can you get? Right? And that'll be an interesting discussion for a later time, hopefully during season 2. But you had a great scene of a trick that they used a lot in Clone Wars of Ezra running, jumping a huge chasm, and then another Jedi, usually Kanan in the Clone Wars, using the Force to push him the rest of the way. In this case, Sabine pushed him the rest of the way to get him from the tower onto the now departing Chimera Star Destroyer. And then rather than falling behind, she turns to help Ahsoka, who is now fighting Elsbeth, who's got the Sword of Talzin, and what's left of the zombie troopers. So it's like, okay, what we now have is the Uno reverse card. Ezra's going home while Ahsoka and Sabine stay in the far galaxy. They stay on Perdia. Now, there's a lot of fun stuff in the battle. I mean, there are times like I kind of wish that something needed to happen with Rosario Dawson. Okay. Not complaining about her as an actor or anything like that. There are times where I felt like she wasn't quite athletic enough for Ahsoka, which, to be fair, is a little bit hard to be as athletic as the youthful animated Jedi. Okay. Well, there are a few times where she's sitting there just swinging her lightsabers around, blocking blaster bolts. And it's like, this feels like it needed somebody with a little more athleticism to make this look better. But on the other hand, her fight with Elsbeth was great. Now, a little too much spinning for my tastes, but it was really cool seeing Elsbeth half-swording, which, now, how her hand didn't catch fire from the green flames up and down the blade, I don't know. More Night Sister magic, I'm sure. But half-swording is not something you see often, and it was great to see it come up. Half-swording, if you don't know, sorry, I'm a little bit of a sword geek, is when, typically, of course, you hold the sword by the handle, right? You hold it by the hilt, and you swing the sword and hopefully slice little bits off your opponent, or big bits, or whatever. But half-swording is when you take your hand and put it up the blade. Sometimes, and you see it sometimes in this battle, she's using it to block, right? So she'll put the sword up and she's supporting with her hand on the hilt and one hand on the blade to give her more leverage to stop a blow when it comes at her. Other times, what you see, and you see this in like medieval sword treatises, and you see it like in modern HEMA, the historical European martial arts stuff, right? Is often what they would do is they would half sword to grab their blade to give them more control to be able to fit the blade into the gaps of armor when they were fighting. Because it turns out swords are really, really bad against armor. But if you could find the soft bits, that's great. But sometimes you need a little bit more control to do that. So it was kind of fun seeing Elsbeth half sorting her way through some of these fights. And, get the sort of, I think this feels like it was not the first time that our heroes jumped off a high place only to land on a ship that Hu Yang was flying, or somebody else was flying, Back to the Future style. And of course we get the classic Ezra of, he hears the bad guys on the comms, and he impersonates the stormtrooper and steals his armor. Right. Classic Ezra. This is, they used that trick a lot in the Clone Wars. It was fun. But let's talk about what's happening now in season 2. Again, they haven't announced a season 2 as of this recording, which today is, what is today? October 7th. So they haven't announced anything. They may be waiting for the strikes to end. The writer's strike is over at this point. The actor's strike is still going on. Bob Iger has sort of talked about wanting to scale back some of the production on Disney Plus. So they may be waiting for something like that. But this show was written and like it expects there to be a season 2. Now, there is a movie that Dave Filoni is supposed to be doing, which could pick up from this point, but I think the way it's set up, there's too much to be part of that story. It really feels like what we're going to see is a season 2, and maybe a season 3 or more, and then a movie. But the other thing is we could see the movie and still come back for season 2. Not that takes place between the end of this season and the movie, right? I mean, you could tell the story out of order. This is Star Wars after all. But let's look at sort of the pieces that are in place, okay? Thrawn is back in the main Star Wars galaxy. Now, he dropped the Night Sisters and their cargo on Dathomir. Now, this is where I've talked about or hinted at briefly that the Night Sisters had a slightly different motive than Thrawn. And you get a feeling that they're sort of, I don't think the Night Sisters are necessarily supportive of Thrawn. They're not, though I was surprised at the deference they showed him in the last episode. But they definitely have their own agenda and are working together. Okay? When Thrawn hints and Elsbeth draws a conclusion herself that she is going to have to stay behind to hold off the heroes while Thrawn escapes, Thrawn's response to her is, long live the Empire. And she says quietly to herself as he steps away, long live Dathomir, which is where the Night Sisters are from. So you can tell this is what her goal is, and this is what the Night Sisters' goals are. It's to, I think, repopulate Dathomir with the Night Sisters. Their cargo, I'm almost 100% sure, are stasis chambers for other Night Sisters. Ezra mentioned that Thrawn woke up the mothers, and that obviously implies that they were sleeping. Well, Star Wars is a high science technology. Stasis chambers are a thing, right? And you don't necessarily have to be frozen in carbonite to do it. So it's kind of where we're at, I think, is the Night Sisters are going to be a force. And I didn't mean to use that pun, but I think that's the way it's going to be. and we're just going to be seeing more Night Sister storytelling from the High Republic era with the show The Acolyte, whenever that gets around to starting up. So we're going to be seeing a lot of Night Sister stuff, which could be fun. The Night Sisters are an interesting group of characters. Okay, so Thrawn is back. And the New Republic knows about this. Ezra managed to steal a shuttle. In fact, it stole Baylan Skoll's shuttle, at least the one he'd been using. And in a fun replay of what happened at the beginning of the series, this shuttle lands on a New Republic ship, only instead of a kind of warm welcome by the captain before trying to call the bluff of Skoll and Hati, it's a bunch of New Republic soldiers, including Hera, ready to just gun down whatever walks out of that ship. Now, Ezra, of course, is in the traditional, I stole a stormtrooper's armor. Great. Why the heck did he still have the helmet on when he stepped off that gangplank? He's coming down off that ship. He is just geared up, looking like a bad guy. Why is he still wearing the armor? Okay, maybe he had to take his clothes off to get the armor on. That's fair. But why is he still wearing the helmet? It's like, dude, we don't need that type of drama. Just the drama of sort of the pan up as he's walking down the ramp, right? Of stormtrooper feet and body. And there's Ezra in all his bearded glory, No, he had to walk up, Chopper sort of recognizing him, and then he's taking his helmet off. Okay. All right, fine. It just seems like a really odd choice for Ezra, you know? But he knows what's coming, so does the New Republic. Whether Senator Jerkface back there will accept Ezra's word for it or not is a different story, but I think the powers that be will. So, you know, Leia will and Mon Mothma will, and that type of thing. And that, I think, is what's going to lead into, specifically, I think Filoni's movie is going to be the war against Thrawn. And I'm a little bit worried that Filoni's going to do some more canon rewrites, and Thrawn's movie is going to be the end with the Battle of Jakku. Which is fine, but we've already heard that story in some of the other books, the Aftermath series of books, which I do not recommend those books. The story is fine. The writing is horrible. I'm not even sure I particularly like the story, but we do see the Battle of Jakku there. You also see it in Claudia Gray's, one of her books. The name I'm Lost Stars, I think it is, which was apparently very good, and I haven't read that one yet, so I can't say. But the Battle of Jakku was the last battle of the Empire. Now, I don't know the timeline necessarily. That probably already happened. But I don't know. Maybe. We'll see that. Well, let's talk about those who are left behind. So you've got Ahsoka, Sabine, and Huyang with their ship. They're sort of camping out, helping the Nodi, Nodi, the little hermit crab guys. But I'm not sure they're staying with them. Ahsoka talks about that it's time to move on. So you get the feeling that they're going to be, in fact, doing just that. Now, you also see Morai, which is the sort of the owl that has been following Ahsoka ever since her run-in with the Mortis gods, and is sort of the symbol of the daughter of that trinity. And since Ahsoka pretty much has the daughter's life force, that's how she survived. That's an episode in and of itself. Multiple episodes in and of itself. Good arc, but hard and weird to explain. But it's sort of a sign anytime it shows up that Ahsoka is kind of where she needs to be. In some ways, it's almost a hint at the will of the Force, if you want to look at it that way. Now, assuming their ship is working, they are living on a planet now that is the home of the Purrgil graveyard. The Purrgil hyper back and forth to these places all the freaking time. In theory, the Purrgil could show up again, and that Ahsoka, Sabine, Huyang, they could go home at any time. Next time the Purrgil show up, they could do the same thing, hop in the mouth of one and hyper their way back home. Now, the Purrgil got a little cheesed off by the minefield on the way in, so it's very possible they won't be around for a while. But they know how to get home, so it just is a matter of timing and that type of thing. So that could be fun, but I have a feeling they're going to be there for another reason. And that other reason, I think, is whatever it is Baylan Skoll is up to. Now, we got almost nothing of Skoll and Hati in this episode, because I think their story is happening in the next, whatever is happening. So I'm going to call it the next season, however that shows up. But the episode kind of ends with Skoll standing on an Argonath-like statue of the father, with the statue of the son next to it, and admittedly headless, but statue of the daughter on the other side. Right? This is the standard Mortis gods trinity. And he's looking at something that is flashing in the background, or in the background in the far distance, which could be anything, knowing Filoni. So it could be the source of the Force. It could be another name has been thrown out that was sort of tied to the Mortis gods. It's not from storytelling that I've ever read, so I don't know. Could be any number of things. Unfortunately, Ray Stevenson, the actor who played Baylan Skoll, died here this last year. And it's unfortunate because he did such an amazing job. He stole that anytime he was on screen, man. So it's going to be kind of disappointing to have somebody else in that role, but that'll be interesting. But it's also possible that whatever he's looking for will sort of also be an entrance to the world between worlds, which is another way that our heroes can get home. So that could be fun. Now, Hadi, on the other hand, she shows up. You see her walking towards the camp of all the raiders, and she raises her lightsaber to announce herself. And the look on her face is the look of one who looks like she has nothing left to lose. You know, she was looking forward to power and her place in Thrawn's new empire, and now she is alone on a distant planet in a distant galaxy with no chance of getting home, from her perspective. And so the look on her face was one of, I've lost everything. Her master is gone because Skoll went off to do his own thing. You know, her ride left, right? And now she's left to survive somehow. And I have a feeling that she's going to just fall completely unhinged dark side and take her revenge off on everybody. And so you start looking at that storytelling. I could see season 2 completely ignoring Thrawn, right? Thrawn's story will be told elsewhere. But season 2 is Skoll and Hadi, Ahsoka and Sabine and Huyang, all these people who are now on Perdea, and their story. Now, part of the reason I think that could be the case is I think, one, it would be a cheaper story to tell, potentially. Because it's a story that can be told with fewer special effects, right? But that, I think, is a story that Filoni would really want to dive into to tell more of what's happening with Ahsoka and her relationship with Sabine, her role now as a teacher with her own Padawan. What is happening with Skoll and whatever he's looking for, right? Filoni's all into the sort of the Force mysticism stuff. And that's where I think a season 2 could really focus. Now, sure, you could cut back and forth between the two stories if you wanted to, of here's everyone on Perdea, here's the New Republic dealing with Thrawn, but it's hard to say, right? There are options. And I want to see those options. I really want to see those options. But they, at least as of this morning, here on, October 7th at 7 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, there's no announcements of what's happening with a potential season 2. But I'm hoping it comes because I really like this pairing of Ahsoka and Sabine, especially a reawakened Ahsoka. And Huyang was all sorts of fun. I love David Tennant as Huyang. He's just been a fun character. So we'll see. But until then, if you want to tell me what you think, drop your thoughts here in the comments on YouTube, or join the Discord server and we can talk Ahsoka all day, man, because I love that stuff. But until next time, be excellent to each other. And this is Music Free Static signing off.